son, let me tell you. It's about Jesus, who he is and what he can do and where he's been and how strong he is and how able he is. And you can, I'm a witness, take the courage of the morning and soar into your dreams. Step into your destiny. Get yourself together and get back up again. To every man who ever gave up on his dream, walked away from his career, his wife, his children, did something crazy, lost your self-esteem, sitting down with a belly full of regret. Been to hell and back, been there, messed up, done that.
Good evening, everyone. Of course, we're listening to Mentalk, and I'm going to pass you right over to the man, Professor. Professor, are you hearing me?
I am hearing you loud and clear. Good evening to you,
Good evening.
Sola, and good evening to Trinidad and Tobago, and of course the rest of the world listening to us on the World Wide Web, and those of us who are here on FBM TV and also on Isaac the Promise Facebook page. We welcome every single one of you to Mentalk. Of course, Mentalk is a time that we have set aside every Saturday night at 8 o'clock from 8 to 9:30 p.m. where we deal with men's issues. We talk about the things that men talk about. We're here to really encourage men, to strengthen men, to teach men, give men a space and a place to talk, to air their views, to get better, to mold, to what's the word I'm looking for? Not to mold, but to connect with other men. And of course, it's not just a men's program, it's a program for the entire family. It's just that because we want to encourage the men to talk, we have called it Men Talk, and we only allow the men, only men to talk, only men to talk. However, ladies, you can interact with us. We have a number because it's an interactive program, and we have a number where you can call, well, not call in, but send us a text message, a WhatsApp text message. The number is 275-1981. 275-1981. Ladies, you want to take that number down straight away and keep it. You send a text message anytime during the program. You can send that message, and men, of course, I'll give you the number when we're ready to open the lines to take your call. We haven't been getting much calls of men lately. I don't know why it is, men. I want to get men back into that talking mood, that sharing mode, that mode where you feel free to talk. I know it's radio and it's public, but it's men, and we want to talk. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what you have to say. We want to know what your thoughts are based on the topic that we're discussing. We want to know what questions you have. So, men, I want to encourage you. When we say the lines are open, we want to see the lines lighting up, because if we just say that for the ladies, I promise you that the ladies will be talking, and we don't want that during this program. We want the men to talk. We want to say thank you so much to our sponsor. That's the Feet Lady and Dr. Anaya Tony, the lady of reflexology. Thank you so much for your sponsorship, your continued sponsorship of the program. And folks, if you want to be a sponsor, part sponsor, that's what I was going to say, a part sponsor, I got sponsor. If you want to be a part sponsor of the program, please feel free to reach out to us. Give us a call at the station. Ask to speak to any one of the account executives or the marketing reps, as we call them, and they will tell you how. You can call me, and I'll tell you how you can be a part sponsor of this all-important program, this special program. We have been doing this for about 20 years now, I believe. And I mean, once a week for all those years. We have had many people, people from all different walks of life on this program. We had judges, we had magistrates, we had lawyers, we had drug addicts, we had former homosexuals, we've had people who have been to jail and out, and we have chefs. We have had all sorts of people on this program. And, so it has helped quite a lot of people. So your sponsorship will be helping. You'll be helping to, bring these men to the fore. And of course, we're going to be helping the station as we continue the legacy left us by our late founder, Dr. Margaret Elcock. And let me just put a plug in here for the Isaac Fund. You can be a part of the Isaac Fund. Just call anytime during the week between 8 and 4 and find out how you can be part of the Isaac Fund. Now, Huey Coffee is not here again tonight, but I have my other co-host, that's George Thomas. George,
yes, I am very much here. Good afternoon, my dear professor. Good afternoon, Trinidad and Tobago. You know what? We made it to the month of April. To God be the glory. April 2022 has come around the corner and we're still here. I am so happy to be on the program this evening, Professor, and I continue to give God the honor and the glory for the people that we reach on the program.
Amen. And of course, April, when we finished March, we completed a quarter, 25% of the year. So we have 75% to go, and we're looking forward to a great 75% of the year. We are supposed to be George, I'm going to buff you a little bit because you're here long enough for me to buff you. All right, it's evening time, George, not afternoon. I think it's probably still having lunch. I don't know if it's you just had lunch, and that's why you're saying afternoon time.
I will take that book. Yes, indeed. I sit corrected. Good evening, everyone.
Yeah. Now we're supposed to have Riquen with oh yeah, she's now logging in. So just in time, Riquen, just in time. Riquen, good evening to you and welcome.
Good evening to you, Professor, and each and everyone that is tuned in, locked in. Co-host George, those in studio, and everybody listening around the world.
Amen.
Amen. Now, a couple of weeks ago, well, last week we had Tony Fraser, and last week on the program, we were talking about the war, and Tony said it's not a war, but the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. And we talked in depth about that, and I think we have a clearer understanding now of what has happened, what is happening across in that side of the world, and we will revisit that another time. Today we want to continue something we started a couple of weeks ago and we left off, and I call it Don't Get Married Just Because. Don't get married just because. And we want to remind some folks of what we were talking about when we left off a couple of weeks ago. There are some of the things that we shared with them we want to remind you. And the first thing I want to remind you of is what we said a couple of weeks ago. Don't get married. And men, in fact, before I remind you, I just want to say this. Men, there are a lot of us who are already married, and we want to give the unmarried guys advice. We want to let them know this is what you do and this is what you don't do. The Bible says that the older men should teach the younger men. It also means that the married men should teach the unmarried men as well. So we are giving advice. And if you are married already, we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you. We want to get your advice as well. So we started off last time by saying, don't get married just because you feel obligated. The person, the female, the woman would have, I'm looking at it from a male perspective now. The woman might have been somebody who did something good for you. She was there for you. She has been there for you, through a dark time in your life. A time when, things were really bad, things were down, and she carried you. You were able to put your head on her shoulder, maybe not literally, but figuratively. And she was there, she advised you, she listened to you, and she got you through that dark time in your life. And now, she has expressed to you that she has feelings for you. She has expressed to you that, during that time she has developed some kind of feeling for you. She loves you, and she wants to spend the rest of her days with you. And you feel obligated because, after all, she helped you out. She was there for you when you needed somebody. Now she needs somebody, and you feel obligated to to get married. And we say that is no reason to get married. Obligation is not a reason. You may feel good, you may say thank you, and you may even respond by, giving them something, but to spend the rest of your life with somebody because you feel obligated, we say that is a no-no. So that's one of the first things we said about don't get married just because you feel obligated. And I want to ask the other gentlemen, I hope you all remember the points that you all shared. So if you all would remember, you could chime in at this time. What are some of the other things that you would have shared, Riquen and George, concerning marriage? Because we're going back in time now to share with them what we shared with them the last time, and we'll pick up where we left off. So either one of you, gentlemen. And let me just say before that, one of the things I failed to say, but I want to say it this week, we also have in studio Adesola. He's at the control, and he's very much a part of the team, so he will chime in from time to time with comments and questions. And of course, he's the one who will be telling us whether or not we have a call or a WhatsApp. All right, so Adesola is also here in studio. So gentlemen, let me hear you.
Okay, I remember sharing don't get
All
married.
Right. I guess. All right, brother Riquen, I'll let you go first.
Okay, cool. Don't get married for citizenship or for a green card.
Yeah, a green Trinidad card, a Trinidad green card, yes. Oh, US card, yes. I hear you, yes. Yeah, you want to just expound on that a little bit, Riquen?
Well, I mean, I think we referenced the whole issue of marriage of convenience when we were making that point. And a lot of people use marriage as a vehicle to GT, to get through. You understand? Whether it's to get employment, whether it's to become a citizen of another land, whether it's the US or Trinidad. We know we have some neighbors who speak in another tongue, and they used union with our local men as a means of getting inside, so to speak, and getting rights. And we think that don't get married just for that reason. And we highlighting the fact that marriage is not something to be trivialized. It's intended to be long-term. It's intended to be permanent. It's intended to serve God's purposes. And so we don't want to use marriage as a tool of convenience for our ends. And afterwards, after we get through, we look to dissolve the union. So don't treat marriage as a disposable item.
Yes.
All right? So,
Indeed. Absolutely. Oh, I remember one of the other things that we discussed, which is something that's commonly done, is that couples tend to get married because there's a child involved, because there's a baby that has come out of the relationship, and they rush into marriage because of the fact that there's now a child involved. And that leads down a very slippery slope where you find more often than not later on the couple falls out of love because it's not been for the right reasons. And we identified the fact that co-parenting is a thing now. It's a very productive way to go in 2022. However, it is never a wise thing for the sake of a child to commit yourself to a lifelong commitment between your spouse and God, simply because of the fact that a life has been brought into the world. So that point majorly is to those who would have fallen into fornication, and they would have had this as a result of the fornication that they've fallen into. So that is another point that we touched on week before last week.
Yes, thank you, George. We also said that, don't get married because You get older and you want as a man, you want a son to carry on your name, sorry. So you say, nah boy, you know, I get older, I get married now, somebody had to carry on the family name and I can't wait, you know. So let me get married now and we will have, I don't know who will tell you that, you know, you could decide whether you're having a son or a daughter, but you want to have a son to carry on your family name. So you get married to this woman all because you want a child, so that your legacy can continue, or your what's the other word? I can't remember the word that I'm looking for right now. But you want to carry on your lineage. So you figure, boy, I better get married now. So I can't wait till it's too late. So that's another reason we said that is not a good reason to get married. Yeah, so that's another one. Could we remember any more, gentlemen?
On the flip side, we have women or ladies who want a child, and you know, they're not prepared to go out of wedlock, but the focus is they want a child. And so they don't mind getting married in order to have the child.
But then the marriage, yes.
Yes, and so what will happen in that scenario is that the child is going to get first place, and not not your husband. You know, that may be a point of contention, right? But the reality is that at some point, the child has to leave and cleave to his own or her own, as the case may be. All right. So the marriage must not be seen as a means just to get a child. Children are byproducts of the marital union, but they are not the reason that you get married. So that's just on the flip side in terms of the woman who wants to have a child. And I think we also spoke about the biological clock, where the women are concerned. Probably George could elaborate on that one.
Uncle George?
Okay, oh, yes.
Oh. Go ahead, George. George, are you there? George seems to be having some problems. I don't know.
Yes, I am indeed here. It seems to be the reception. Yes, a number of women in their higher 30s, heading towards 40, a lot of the times they look at the fact that they have become older, and a lot of the times that biological clock starts ticking, and within them there's this silent panic, that silent panic button that's being pressed to say that I must have a child now. These are the last few years of my fertility, you know, being spent away with me not being wed. However, at the end of the day, we touched on the fact that there have been a number of developments medically, within which we see in 2022 that there are a number of women that are over their 40-year span, and they are now able to safely deliver children. You know, so it's a different world that we're in, where at the end of the day, the life expectancy of a child and the life expectancy of a mother higher up in her years has now greatly increased. So, you know, that concept of diving into marriage because of a biological clock ticking, it tends to occlude judgment in terms of the selection of a partner, because now there's a desperation for any partner at the point in time, and that is not necessarily a proper recipe for a union, for a marriage, because you're going to find after children come into the mix, you are going to have certain problems that you weren't able to address before, certain red flags that you weren't able to see before, and by that time it's too late. The horse is already out of the barn, and you're stuck in a marriage within which you're not happy, within which you're unevenly yoked. So it is definitely, that biological clock, definitely not a reason to commit yourself to marriage.
Oh, Thank you, George. Just look like a settled married man there, boy. Yes, George.
No.
Let me just share one more. I can remember one more. The other gentleman, George, and you can remember others. One thing we said is that some people get married to improve their financial situation, their status, because they probably having financial problems, and they say, this person is well off, they have money, and they'll take care of me. I don't have to worry about the bills anymore. I don't have to worry about all the loans and things that I have will be all taken care of if I get married to this person. And we're saying financial reasons is not a good reason to get married. I mean, it's good if you get married and these things happen, but that should not be the purpose of you getting married. So to improve your financial situation, we say that that is a no-no, because again, once what happens now when your financial situation is improved, when your loans are paid off, you have no more credit card loans and things, what happens to a relationship between you and the person if that's what the catalyst for you all getting together? So it's never a good reason
Yes.
to get married. Yes, George.
Yes, dear Professor. Just piggybacking off of what you said, it came back to mind as well that a lot of people do it more for far more reasons than just financial. In terms of they may get married for status. The surname of a certain person may give them status or credibility within their profession, within their life standing. And so you may find that you have that element, as well as you may have parents who pressure two people into getting married because one may have good hair and the other one may have intellectual capability, and everyone thinks if these two people get together, man, the products of this marriage, they are going to be superstars. This is no reason to get married either. Where you think that when my genes combines with her genes, we're going to have this genetic prodigy on our hands, because what you're going to find happening is that eventually that dream, that ambition may sorely let you down, and I'm going to add a little thing here, because in thinking about it, somehow faith and life has a sense of humor sometimes, because you may find that, yes, at the end of the day, the gene work may be laid down, the blueprints may be laid down. What happens in the event that the child that you have has some sort of medical defect or some sort of cognitive defect? For example, if a child is born with Down syndrome, what happens then within the marriage? What happens to the love for that child? What happens to that situation when all the hopes and dreams that you anticipated in this union stop just short of what you were hoping for? What eventually happens to the marriage? What eventually happens to the nurturing of the child? What eventually happens is that because of not getting married for the right reasons, you are going to have a mess on your hands.
Thank you, George. George said something there, Riquen, that I've always wanted people to explain to me. What is good hair, boy? You look at people and say, "Oh, you are nice. You have good hair. You have good hair." I've never been able to understand what good hair is. Now, my hair, for people who are watching on Facebook and YouTube, my hair is naturally curly. I don't know if you can see it. So as it grows out, it gets very, very curly. And so to my brother and one of my sons. So somewhere in my ancestry, in fact, I understand my grandmother was a Carib. Not the one you drink, but she was a Carib, and because of that, I'm mixed up. All right, so I'm not pure 100% African, and people when they see my hair, they say, "Hey, you have good hair, boy. Look at your hair. I didn't know you. Somebody like you could have good hair." And I really can't understand it. Maybe one of these days somebody will be able to explain to me what good hair is. But that's just a by the way. Riquen, before we move on, maybe just probably if there's one more that we said, we could probably remind the folks and then we push on.
Probably we can ask the callers to weigh in on what good here is.
Yeah, maybe. Yes, if you're out there, not the females. I didn't say it at the beginning in case you're new to the program. The program is Mentalk, and the interaction is done when the calls, when we open up the line to take the calls, we only accept calls from the men. Sorry, ladies. You can, however, interact with us. The number is 275-1981, 275. Send a text message anytime during our conversation, ladies. 275-1981. And maybe you can tell us what is good here. You tell me, because I was at loss to understand what good here is. Yes, so Riquen.
Yes, I think we may have mentioned as well that don't get married to escape a home situation.
Right.
Things may be going on at home that, you know, maybe you're being mistreated, maybe there's abuse, maybe you consider the black sheep or whatever. There's some kind of adverse kind of situation. You're fed up with your mother, you're fed up with your father, whoever, you understand? They're always on your case. Oh gosh, you know, you're tired. Getting married is not a good reason to escape that situation. And I mean, things have a way, you know, the boomerang effect. You very well might end up back in that situation. And, you know, it may be compounded, as a matter of fact. You know, so particularly, you know, the young women, you know, they may be experiencing a little bit of hardship or pressure or whatever. And they're like, you see me, I can't take this, I getting out. And, you know, we think that getting married just to escape that situation is ill-advised. Yeah?
Yeah. Yes, indeed. So we want to push on. I know we might have mentioned other things as well, but we, you know, as we go along, if we remember them, we will bring them up. And in case you've just joined us, folks, you're listening to Mentalk on Isaac 98.1 FM, The Promise. You can also check us out on Facebook, that Isaac The Promise Facebook page, and you can check us on YouTube. That's FBN TV. Right now, you can, you know, step across to any of these platforms and view us instead of just listening to us. And of course, here on Isaac 98.1 FM, The Promise. And it is sponsored by the Fifth Lady, Anaya Tony, the lady, the reflexology lady. So we want to push on. And we're talking tonight about don't get married just because. The wrong reasons to get married. A lot of people, you know, there's a marriage season. There's a season of people just getting married just like that. And we're saying to you, you got to be careful, you know, when you're getting into this thing. This is a permanent thing. This is a light thing. So be sure you're in it for the right reason. And I want to continue by, you know, maybe just feeding off something that Riquen just shared. This one is not a family situation so much, but not pressure by your family, or maybe not pressure by your family only, but people in the neighborhood, your friends, your co-workers. Both of you, you and this girl have been engaged for a long time, and they find out they're engaged too long, and people start pressuring you. So when you go marry the woman, boy, right, and you feel that pressure, no, you're not ready. You're not ready. You know you're not ready. Maybe you're still studying. Maybe you want to accomplish certain things. Maybe you don't feel that, you know, you're financially able to take care of a family as yet. Whatever reason, or you're not sure that this is the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with. But the pressure, you're hearing it constantly. Listener, man, you can't have this girl waiting so long. You know, what's going on with all this? And because of that, because you listen to those voices, because people keep telling you it's time, you haven't come to that conclusion. But because, excuse me, because people keep telling you that it's time, and it may include your family as well. It may include your good friend, your good partner. It may include your, you know, whoever it is. You have been together so long. Maybe the woman telling, listen, we engaged too long ago. 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, we engaged, 5 years, and we ain't married yet. And you're not, you're of yourself. You're not there yet. You're not there yet. Then maybe if you're not there, maybe it's not the right relationship for you. Maybe you should consider doing something else or terminating the relationship or something. But the point is, you don't get married because of the pressure, not because of the pressure of those around you or what society says that, you know, X amount of years is too long to be engaged. And maybe both of you are okay with that with length of time. But when you start to hear the other people, you know, you tell yourself, now I had to do this thing. I had to jump into this thing, and you get married. And very often, and in fact, all the reason we're giving it not to, very often they lead to unhappiness, they may lead to unfaithfulness, they may lead to stress and all sorts of things. So that's another reason. The pressure from friends, from families, from co-workers, from society. Don't bow to that pressure. Yes, gentlemen?
Professor,
Anybody?
Good evening. Adesola here.
Adesola, yes.
Yes, if I may add, two things. One, sometimes you have situations where persons are in the, of course, we're speaking generally to a Christian audience. You have a Christian setting, which is the church setting. And you may be together with individuals in a church or individual in a church setting. And having that kind of issue, of course, your pressure comes from the church persons who would see you all together and so forth and figure the natural progression for you all to move is to get married. You know, how do you deal with that situation? Because I believe that could be one of the reasons, because the entire church has come down upon the both of you all and say, well, you know, you all have to get married. You know, how do you deal with that pressure? That could be a reason that many people get into marriage that shouldn't have gotten into marriage.
You know, and that's the thing, you know, and you're so right that you can get pressure from the church because they figure, listen, it's about time, we're not going around too long. But the church is wrong to do that. I understand that there would be a concern. I would be concerned too if two people are going around for years, you know, and we say, for those of you outside of Trinidad, going around mean they've been courting and they've been involved in a relationship. And maybe that's exactly what it is. They're just going around and round and round. And they haven't come in for a landing to say, well, look, let's make a commitment. Maybe it's an intervention is needed. Maybe some senior person, the pastor or somebody, could have a chat with these two people. Because one of the things we have said as well is that counseling, premarital counseling is not only when you set a date. Premarital counseling starts before. So these people are prime targets for premarital counseling, for some sort of counseling. It means that they would not have made up their minds. It means that they haven't come to that place as yet. And maybe they need help. They need help to decide to come to that place. Because, of course, you can't keep going on and on and on with no end in sight at all. So I agree with that. But it means that there must come some intervention. And the intervention is not to tell them to get married or force them into get married or, you know, or bully them into getting married at all. All right? So I think the church is wrong to do that. If anybody, and I'm sure that has been done before, but I think that's a wrong reason to get married. Yes, gentlemen, other gentlemen, Riquen, George, talk to me, chime in.
Yes. I want to start my contribution by saying this. Just in the same way that women have a biological clock, men tend to have a financial clock. Now, I'll elaborate on that. When you're a young man, of course, you would have certain visions for your life. You would have certain aspirations for your life. And a lot of the time, quite often, it comes down to saying to yourself, well, by the time I'm 35, I should be at this financial place in my life. I should have this settled because, of course, as we mentioned some weeks ago when we were talking about the P's, one of the main things that a man is supposed to be in a relationship is a provider. And so a number of men have a financial clock that they aspire towards. We all understand within society and life that plans don't always work out the way that we intend them to. And so, to bring my point to the fold, I would like to add to what you're saying, Professor, where I would like to advocate that men do not allow the pressure of your spouse into marriage to be a reason why you step into marriage. Because if as a man, you are aware of the fact that I am not a place where I can provide for a family, I'm not to a place where I have the foundation that I need set to be able to take care of my wife and take care of my future children, then it makes no sense allowing the pressure of a spouse to goad you into marriage, to goad you into that place where you make a commitment before that spouse, before the witnesses there, before God, to love, honor, and cherish this person. And at the end of it, you find that you are not able to honor those vows that you've taken because you're not in a financial, you're not in a fiscal place to do so. It is a plaster on an open sore that will eventually fall apart. What do I mean by that? At the point in time, you may abate your partner's concerns because you would have given them the marriage or the wedding that they wanted. But marriage is not for a day. It's not for a moment. Marriage is a lifelong commitment. And if you see that you don't have the financial plans in place to sustain a marriage, you're going to find that your marriage will begin falling apart right before your very eyes because of the fact that you jumped in way too early into a commitment that you were not ready for. So that's my humble addition to what you're saying, Professor.
Thank you, George. Thank you, George. Riquen?
So it's a reality that, couples allow external pressure to weigh and sometimes dictate what happens between both partners. So whether the pressure is internal, and when I say internal, probably from family or external, friends, church, whatever, that the reality is that if it is allowed before the marriage, chances are it will happen during the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Chances are that when issues come up during the marriage, you may allow external forces to dictate or to determine what happens within. And so that's a dangerous precedent, I would say. During the course of this week, I was sharing with someone, could have been at home, in the sports world, when it comes to sports, whether it's individual sports or team sports, there are a number of different parties that impact the game, right? So in team sports, for example, you have the players, but on every team, you have a captain.
Mm-hmm.
On every team, you have a coach. On the day of the game, or if it's a test match, during the days of the game, you will have a crowd. And you may have, depending on what type of game or sport it is, you may have people who are designated cheerleaders. Now, each group brings their own value to the game or to the team. But at the end of the day, who do you listen to? You may derive some energy from the crowd, you may derive some energy from the cheerleaders, but at the end of the day, you do not take instructions from them. And it is very important that we understand who our captain is, who our coach is, and differentiate them from the crowd and from the cheerleaders. And I think all of us need to be able to identify uh, who those persons are, so that when pressure is exerted, normally the people who exert pressure are the crowd, right? But you don't take instructions from the crowd. You don't take guidance from the crowd. The crowd is very fickle. And so you want to ensure that you are being led and guided, of course, by God's Spirit, yes, but you are taking wise counsel from someone who is like a coach, probably the couple has a coach or a mentor or whatever. That person could be the counselor, or somebody that you decide you want to be accountable to as a couple. Those are the people that you want to be guided by. Everybody else is extraneous. You don't need to plug into what they're saying. And a lot of times we end up being swayed by the crowd, right? So it is up to the individuals themselves to ensure that they do not give in and give heed to the voices on the outside. Because as I said, whatever precedents we set before the marriage will likely continue during the marriage. So it's important to set the right precedents.
Yeah. Now I hear you. I hear you, Riquen. But I just wonder, based on the scenario that Adesola, presented to us just now, the church people, those around you, would you consider them part of the crowd? Because you're talking about being in an environment where you have different people, elders and deacons, and maybe even the pastor, and all of them telling you, boy, it's time to get married. It's time to get right, time to make the woman, well, they used to say that long time, make her honorable, that kind of thing. So I don't know if in your analysis that they are part of the crowd or they part of the coaching team, because you listen to the coaching team, you have to listen to those who are around you and who perhaps have your best interest at heart, and they may think, well, that's in your best interest. So it's not so much that the people in the environment or the wider membership of the church, but when the leaders of the church, putting you under that kind of pressure, it might be a different kind of pressure, Riquen. It might be a different kind of thing. And, what other solutions might come into play, right? And so this is, that would be another, I don't know, to me it would be a challenge if the leaders are the ones, those up top, those who you would go to for counsel and advice, if they're the ones who are saying, boy, it's too long, you might really feel pressured into saying, well, okay, well, yes.
Professor,
right? So
Professor,
yes.
if I may add something, I think to make that my comment before even even for better discussion, I think it could go sometimes in two directions. One is in the scenario is what you're putting to it, which is this couple or these two youths that you realize, or young people you realize, going around, and they're just going around for a very long time, and out of interest, out of helping them, out of not wanting them to fall into going off direction, you trying to give them some guidance that if this is what you want, then you all should try to make it formal and go in a certain direction. But then there's also where two young people in the church working together very well, maybe on a committee, maybe in a certain department or so on. And you have that situation that happens in church where people just find, hey, you and this individual going good together. You are a good single fella. This is a good single girl. Look, all of us work so nice together. Every time I watch all, I see all they could be together. And you have that kind of scenario building now. And then start a study, but in truth, you know, we does really work together. But you never had that you know, you might have never looked at the individual in such a way. That happens in church as well, where
Yeah.
people put you all together because they find, you know, two of you all is looking at the two most illegible to fall
Mm-hmm.
into the category. So I separated it because it could happen in those two directions, and I understand the first one where, you know, you all have, you have made up a decision that you're going out, you're thinking, and you're doing this for a long time. Instead of you all just what they may look at as just plain, you all should try to formalize this thing. And then there's the other scenario where they are putting you all together off of just finding that you all look good together, you all work well together in the church, and you know. So how do you deal with those two scenarios?
Mm-hmm. Again, well, let Riquen weigh in on that, because I don't want to jump in and take, you know, take everything, take all the meat and only leave the bones. So, Riquen, George.
Oh gosh. So I think what is important is the couple need to decide who they are going to make themselves accountable to. I think that's very important. You're not going to be accountable to everybody. Even people in leadership, you may not be directly accountable to. Now, I don't think any pastor should, or any leader should be putting pressure on a couple to get married. The scripture says, come, let us reason together, right? Come, let us reason. So if from a position and a place of wisdom and experience, you observe that, you know, this couple, you know, taking kind of long to tidy knot, then you engage them in a conversation, in a discussion, and an honest discussion. There may be some hidden fear, there may be some hidden concern, and I'm saying it is the person or persons that the couple have chosen to make themselves accountable to, that they should have that discussion with, that conversation with, that, okay, listen, really and truly deep down, you know, I have a little, I have a fear in this area, or you're not concerned about that, or what, and we can work through that, so that, you know, everybody comes to a place of understanding, in particular the couple, of course, that, you know what, we can't leave the vehicle in neutral. We got to change the gear at some time. You understand? But it would be after we have come to a place where we have ventilated and aired and shared exactly where we are. I think one of the things that happens is that cards remain hidden. We don't lay all the cards on the table, and sometimes we proceed in a particular direction and we have stuff internally unresolved. And it's important for stuff to be resolved before you move forward. It doesn't matter who thinks you're taking too long. Stuff must be resolved between the couple as to why this is happening, and then we could move forward. And move forward could mean, okay, we're going to get married, or we're not going to get married. All right. As for the other issue, in terms of, you know, a couple may work well together, and people in the church playing matchmaker and stuff. that one kind of touchy. It's kind of dicey. They may work well together in youth ministry. They may work well together, you know, in a different, but there's no guarantee that they will work well together in a marriage. And so I go back to that term called due diligence. The due diligence still has to be done to determine and to ascertain whether or not we are actually a good fit for each other, not just in a church setting, but in life. So that would be my contribution towards that point.
Wonderful. I would just like to add to that, you see, because a lot of the times we as the church would see what's going on the outside, but there are a number of issues that would be taking place on the inside that we would not be aware of. I'll give you an example. I have a trace of sickle cell anemia. So if I were to partner with someone who also has a trace of sickle cell anemia, when I'm ready to have my family, I very well may end up with a child that has a compound case of sickle cell anemia. This is something that couples have to look at. Medical history. A lot of the times when they get into that factor, they realize that this, even though we may feel a certain way for one another, even though we may have certain compatibility with one another, it may not be a practical idea. And so this is just one out of a myriad of situations that would be going on under the surface that the church would not be aware of, that the couple would have to sort through and come to a place where they come to an understanding before they can proceed. And as I am on that point, Professor, I would like to pose a question to you and Brother Riquen. And I will use my life as an example. Quite on the other side of the coin, you would find that sometimes two people are in love. And as with my situation some years ago, my fiancée, we found out that she had cervical cancer. And so sometimes as a man, you would find yourself wanting to get married to this person because of knowing their terminal situation medically. And, you know, you want to be able to give them marriage before they pass on. Is this a valid reason to get into a marriage? Or is this a red flag that we need to stay away from? And that's my question to you.
All right, George. Before I attempt to add my 2 cents to that, we want to let people know that you're listening to Mentalk on Isaac 98.1 FM, The Promise. Our Facebook page, we are live. That's Isaac The Promise. And we are live on YouTube as well. That's FBN TV. So you can view as well as listen to what is going on. We also want to let you know that lines are open. We want to open the lines now. If you have a question or comment, and the numbers to call are 480-4121, 480-4121, and 463-7208. 463-7208. Either of those numbers you could call. You want to contribute, you want to ask a question, you want to make a comment, you want to agree or disagree with something you would have heard, feel free to call us. Now that's if you're male. If you're a man, you can call us. Ladies, you can send us a text message to 275-1981. 275-1981. Ladies, that's the number that you would send a text message to. Not a voice note, but a text message. And men, 480-4121 and 463-7208. Okay. So getting back to George and his question. George, you're not supposed to be asking questions. You're supposed to be answering. But anyway, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Huh? I would begin by asking the question. So you're getting married because the person is terminal. What happens if you get married and you find out that the person is in remission, or it was a wrong diagnosis or something? What happens then? Can you unmarry? I'm not even saying divorce. Can you get unmarried because the reason that you got married is no longer valid? That's a question for you to answer. Now, if the case is where they are terminal and it's going to be, a short period of time, again, is it marriage out of pity? Are you pitying the person so you want to make their last days on earth, the last time, the few months or weeks that they have left, you want to make it a good one for them? I ask the question, is that a good enough reason to get married? A conversation needs to be had between you and the person. What is the status of your relationship? Where would it have gone if that person was not terminal? where would it have gone at that particular point in time? These are some of the questions I think needs to be asked at this at that juncture, in that, you know, at that stage, because we don't want people married out of pity. I feel sorry for you, so let me make you feel good, you know, for the little time that you have there. Okay, and remember, marriage is not just two people coming together to have a good time, or, you know, or to work together on a committee. You know, marriage, excuse me, is deeper than that. Marriage is, you know, something, is a reflection of the relationship that Christ has with his church, the bride. So it's much more than just trying to make somebody feel good. It's much more than just you know, feeling sorry for somebody. Now, having said that too, if it is that this is the road that you all would have gone down, it would have been leaded to that, and because of what has happened now, you want to bring up the date, you want to come to the point where, you know, we don't have much time left, so let's spend the time together, because that's what we're going to do anyway. And that's another thing. So conversation needs to be had. All right, I will stop there and allow, I don't know if Riquen has anything to add to that, or Adesola.
Professor, before you continue, let me just give two WhatsApp messages that we got.
Sure.
One was "Good night, gentlemen," which I believe you're going in that direction soon. But the person asks, "Good night, gentlemen. My question is, what is the right reason to get married?" And let me give the next one time. Someone said, "How does the term living in sin come into play in this scenario? When a couple is living together, but they are not ready for marriage, but they don't want to separate."
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. We'll address those after Riquen. Riquen, are you there? Okay, I'm not sure. Like
Riquen might be frozen.
Riquen, like you're the fridge. All right. George, anything to add before I come in?
Well, at the end of the day, for me, within my situation, we were set to get married. It's just that God took her before that time, you know, and it was a situation that for quite a while in my life, I was haunted, should I say, by not doing so. So this is why I posed the question, because this was someone that I truly loved, and were she alive, we may have probably been still married today. So for me, I would say it would have never been out of pity. It would have been out of love and commitment. So that's why I posed the question, because for me, it was a bit of a gray area. So thank you for clearing that up, Professor.
Thank you. I see Riquen is back with us. Riquen, are you back? Or is he still frozen? Okay, I thought I saw him move just out. All right, so let's come back to the two questions that were asked on the WhatsApp. One is, what is the right reason to get married? Well, we actually we did the right reasons before we did the wrong reasons. Maybe we should have done it in reverse, because we did give some reasons why you know, people should get married. I could tell you two things. One, that you can go back in the archives and pull it up, because we did a couple programs on that. Why get married, or what are the good things what are the things you look for in a partner, in a spouse? All right, so it's quite a lot of things. I could give you one or two now, but we did a whole host of things that you look for in a person that you're going to get married, and you're going to get married to. And so I'll come back to that in a minute. In terms of the living in sin, now that's a ticklish thing, and different people handle it different ways. I know different churches, and depending on who you go to, will tell a different thing. If two people are living together and they have come to the point where maybe they get saved, and they decide they don't want to get married. My question would be, so why are you all together? All right, because if you're living together, and marriage is about two people coming together, being one. The scripture talk about that in Genesis, where a man should leave his father and mother, cleave to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. We know that to mean a sexual union, but it also talks about two people coming together, making one life. All right, you already have that situation, so you're living in that situation, and you're saying now you don't want to formalize it. My question would be why? Why wouldn't you want to formalize a situation like that? Why wouldn't you want to say, listen, we are living outside of the covenant of God? Because marriage is a covenant between two people and God. We recognize now that we're living outside of that covenant. What would be the reason why we don't want to? Because we're already there. We're already doing all the things that married people do. Let's make it right. Because we're doing all that, and it's like you're in a party. Well, let me just say, well, let me use an example. You're storm to come in. You're inside now, all right? You didn't, and they come to put you out. They say, listen, we recognize now that you don't have a ticket. You're coming here and you don't have a ticket. You have the money, buy the ticket and stay in, or you exit the place because you're not supposed to be there in the first place. So, I mean, that might be a not too good example. But my question, I would ask a question. Why would two people who have already engaged in a marital union and knowing that what you're doing doesn't bring you the blessings of God, it doesn't fall under the covenant of God, why would you not want to formalize it? That would be the first question I would want to ask. It would also mean engaging the couple in some counseling, some talking, because if you're living with a man or woman for so many years and you don't want to get married to them, it says something, so it begs a question. So, this is not a straightforward answer. I would want to talk to the couple and I would want to find out, get some more in-depth information as to what is really happening. I think I see Riquen back. Riquen, are you back? Because I'm not too sure what is happening with Riquen, or I think he's gone again. Yeah. In terms of the right reason, there's no one right reason to get married. One of the things that we said is that there are certain things that you look for in a partner, and there are certain things that you look for in a relationship. There are many of those things. We could probably revisit them. But one of the things, the basic things, is to understand what marriage is. If two people are getting married and neither of them understand what this covenant is about, because people get married for different reasons, and two people could be coming into a marriage and both of them have different expectations. One is being married, and we were talking about some of these things this evening. One is getting married for one reason, and the other person's getting married for another reason. So it's important for us to be in sync, on the same page. We need to understand what marriage is about, why people get married, what the Lord has said about marriage. It's a host of things. As I said, we went through this before. We will probably revisit it, but I can't really expound on all these things tonight. Basically what we're looking at tonight is why not get married. I guess in hindsight, we really should have done it in reverse. We should have done this first and then gone into the reasons why people should get married. But you can try and put it up on YouTube, or another time we will revisit it. Okay, so the number to call if you have a question is 480-4121, 480-4121, 463-7208, 463-7208. Ladies, you can continue to WhatsApp us at 275-1981, 275-1981. And you are listening to Mentalk on Isaac 98.1 FM, The Promise. And so we move on, because I'm not sure what is happening with Riquen. Maybe his device is giving problems. So we want to move on.
Professor,
And we'll look.
sorry,
Yes, go ahead.
if I may add, one of the points I wanted to add earlier, that I've realized sometimes persons get married, especially as we're dealing with men. Sometimes a man picks up or gets married to a woman um, really to complete the view that he has of life. And let me explain that a little bit in terms of he didn't really marry his equal. He married someone to to see about his kids, firstly to have children, to see about his kids, to see about his home, to do all those things that he doesn't see the man needing to do. And so the person is not his equal. He's not going to confer with them for decisions. He has all the decisions, how he's going to do, what he's going to do, how he's going to spend his money, what he's going to do. But that person, of course, he can't make children for himself. So he needs somebody to have to make his children. He needs someone to see about the home. So he has his own money. So he's going to build his house. But you realize that there's not an equal he didn't go into a marriage like if he married someone of his equal. He married someone to see about his life, the part of his life that he in his mind that is not for the man to see. So I believe is one of the, and you see it. I remember recently we had a discussion about a simple thing as who pays when you go into the grocery. And you see that scenario every time you go into the grocery. When you reach by the cashier, you see the different scenarios playing out itself, where the man, sometimes he pulls out the money, sometimes the woman has the money already, sometimes he gives her only when the cashier tells him how much it is, sometimes he gives her from before. All those scenarios, and you see in some cases where that is his scenario. That's just recently, just this week, I saw a scenario, and I looked at it and I said you could pull so many different things from it. I saw a scenario in the supermarket where the man was pushing the cart, and the lady was pregnant. A child was sitting in the cart already. She was pregnant, and so he was asking her. He said, you sure this is all you want? And you're sure? And she's saying, yeah. Well, look, it has some snacks there. Well, take it, put it in the trolley. And just how the scenario was building, it's almost as if, I think I pay any money here. You tell me what you want, take what you want off the shelf. It's almost, some people can look at it as she becomes like a child. You take what you want. You want sugar, take that. You want flour, take that. Make sure you take all what you want, I'm telling you, take what, you see that scenario building itself. So I believe there are men who go into a marriage situation with that. The woman is just a part of building my life, but it is not. She's not as equal to me. It's not two of us building a thing. She just is for the things that she has to do: make children, see about the home, make sure we have things to cook, all those kind of things. I guess that's one of the reasons as well.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you, Adasola. And the thing is that it underscores the importance of premarital counseling. Because in premarital counseling, you talk about all that. You talk about family of origin. What was your family like? What was your growing up like? What happened in your house? Who paid the bills? What was the relationship between your father and mother? That really, it points to how you view life and your role as a man and what the woman's role is. And these are the things that come out, with a trained counselor, with someone who guides you, because these scenarios play out themselves during the counseling session, because we understand that when two people are getting married, it's not just two, it's two of you, it's your family and my family and the extended families, and how we grew up and what were the values and the standards that were set, and what was the role that was played by the woman and the role was played by the man. Now, if you go into marriage without understanding all that, scenarios like this, that you described, can play out, because people have different understanding of what marriage is supposed to be and what the roles are, in the marriage. And that's why it is important. You don't get married just so, people. You don't get married, and you have to go to someone, and I'm trusting that churches have that. And I'm going to say something. I've said it before. I even said it today to someone, and I'm going to say it. And I know, some people may not be upset with it, but not every pastor can counsel. Not every leader can counsel. Not because he's a pastor. Some pastors, Some pastors will just tell you, well, you leave a father and mother and cleave to your wife and da da da. They ask you a question like, where you working? How much money you working for? You can take care of home, and that's it. And that's the extent of the counseling. People are supposed to be able to guide you, ask pointed questions. When I do marital counseling, I have a question that I have people fill out. It's 50 questions, and I have to cut it down. All right, 50 questions that deals with the person's past, that deals with the view of what finances and communication, how you communicate. We talk about the parents, things that they saw in their house, things that were good, things that were not good. The 50 questions outlines a number of things, and then when they both fill it out. This is how I do it. They fill it out separately, not communicating with each other. And then when we come together, we look at the answers and we compare them and we take it from there. Too many people get involved in marriage, and they are different levels, they're in different planes, they're different frequencies, and that is why we run into problems like you just described there at the solar.
I'm listening to what you're saying, Professor, and it's reminding me of an old man that I considered a father. He used to counsel me, and he often said, if you intend to climb Mount Everest, don't go to a fisherman for information. In other words, if you are to seek counseling for marriage, one of your best guidelines to go by when you are allocating for yourself a marriage counselor is the successful marriage that that person would have for themselves. It is always a great measuring stick by which you would be able to assess that this is the counselor for me. Someone who has, just giving an example, 25 years of a successful marriage would have been able to highlight for you the pitfalls, the potholes, the ridges, the valleys of a successful marriage, so that they would be able to advise you as to what exists, what you need to look out for. So when you're selecting a marriage counselor, it is often quite a wise thing to look at their marital history, because someone who has had a series of failed marriages, the information that they can best give you probably is what not to do in your marriage, but it's going to be a far stretch for them to successfully grant to you the elements that make for a successful marriage. So even if you do not have the confidence in the pastor within the church, there may be a couple, an upstanding couple within the church that seems to have that gel. They seem to have it together. They seem to have that it factor in their successful marriage. And they would provide for you valuable information and advice that would guide you along the right principles of what a successful marriage is. So when looking for a counselor, these are the things that I believe we need to make a priority in our search.
Wonderful. Thank you, George. I think Riquen is back. Let me just, before I go to Riquen, let me just say this. When I made a statement just now, I was talking to pastors as well. Right? If you know that, you don't have the skill or the grace, let me use the word grace, the grace to counsel people, to do marital counseling, all right? Not because you're married, I might be married successfully too. If you don't have the grace for it, then, there are people within your congregation who might be able to do that. And I would advise you, to look for such people. Riquen, I think you're back with us. I believe so. Are you back, Riquen?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Sorry, yes, we can hear you. Sorry we lost you before, but come on, talk to us.
Okay, was having some connectivity issues out of my control. My apologies. So I want to probably maybe counter what George is saying, to an extent, or probably bring another perspective. Sometimes it's important for us to hear from those who have failed, or those who have had failed marriages. And there are some among us who currently are having successful marriages, but they had a failed marriage or relationship before. And so that experience that they would have gone through, they have been able to use it productively in this present relationship. And at the end of the day, we don't just need to know what to do. We also need to know what not to do and why not to do it. And a lot of times what has happened is that we have actually, how to put it, we have discounted or undervalued the contribution of those who have been through failed marriages. And we tell ourselves, or we think to ourselves, or we believe that, you know what, they're not qualified to counsel me where marriage is concerned because their marriage failed. That's not necessarily the case at all. And the reality is that people want to be able to connect with reality. They want to be able to connect with the truth of life. And some of the best people to do that with are those who have fallen, those who have failed, and are willing to admit they have failed and could identify for you where they have failed. And that may be divorcees who are still divorcees, that may be divorcees who have since remarried and have learned their lessons at the end of the day. So I would want to urge us not to disregard or not to discount the value that those people would bring as to whether or not you choose them as a marriage counselor. That's a different issue. And so I would want to plug in that as well, right? So again, that's an area where due diligence is needed. So we may need to do some inquiry, some research, as to, people who have an established track record when it comes to marital counseling. But at the same time, do not discount the experiences of those even who had failed marriages. Don't be afraid to go to them and ask the hard questions. Why? Trusting, of course, that they would have matured from their failures and are now in a position to advise and to impart wisdom in that area.
Thank you, Riquen. And I agree with you. But I also want to add that, just as you say, the people who have had failed marriages, you can learn from them. You also said that you may not want them to be a marriage counselors. I would also say that not because people have had successful marriages that you would want them to be marriage counselors as well, because not because you can do something, you are able to pass that information on to others. I remember sitting down in a class once, it was accounting some many years ago. And this guy, he seemed to be brilliant. He was brilliant. This was cost accounting. One of the things that I did accounting. I have accounting qualification, but at that time, you see that thing called cost accounting, it was horrible. And this guy, we had a question. The question was complicated. And he's a teacher. And he went on the board and he listened, and that man showed us how to he did the question on the board. And when he was done, I was more confused than anything else, because he was just saying, well, you do this and you do that, and think about this and that and that. And he's brilliant, because from what I understand, he won some international award. He came first in the world, and I guess that's why they had him as a lecturer for that. But at the end of the day, he wasn't able to pass on to me what made him so brilliant, why how he he was able to do the questions, and he was able to pass the principles on to me at all. So it didn't mean that, I mean, he was good, he was brilliant, but it didn't mean that he was able to pass that brilliance on to me. So not because I would have experienced something good, it means that I can, you know, articulate to you, well, you know, this is what you do, and this is how you do it, and that kind of thing. So we really had to be careful when we're choosing the people that we get counseling from. And that's why I'm saying again, for those of us who are in a position of authority, if you know you don't have the grace for something, please let somebody who has that grace, you know, counsel the people. Let me just say quickly, we're almost out of time, but I want to throw in one last one. We may not have time to discuss all of it. Some people get married to fix the problems in the relationship. Okay, and when I say that, you know, you're involved in somebody, you're having a relationship with somebody, but he's unfaithful or she's unfaithful, and you figure, you know what? If we get married, they will stop. If we get married, you know, things will be different. Things will be better. I know we kind of touched that already, but I wanted specific to this one. We think that marriage fixes people. So we come into marriage, and I think I love the analogy that you had, Riquen, when you talk about the fractions. You have to come in whole, all right? But a lot of us, we feel that marriage will make us whole, to take us from a fraction to a whole, and it is not necessarily like that. We don't have much time, but I would like to hear you all, you know, just give some feedback on that. George, want to sleep, George?
No, I'm very much here, and I agree with you completely. You know, at the end of the day, too often, people believe that marriage is a fix-it-all, you know, and what it does is that it exacerbates situations that would have existed before. You know, quite often, couples believe that, you know, we're struggling through finances, we're struggling through promiscuity and these sorts of things. And once we get married, once we grab that brass ring, that all of those problems will disappear. What you are essentially doing is now, dare I say, trapping yourself in a situation where unresolved baggage exists. And we need to be mature enough to take the time out to say, you know, before I commit myself for life to this covenant, I need to address these things, or we need to address these things. We need to sort these things out. We need to come into this covenant as whole individuals. We need to resolve the nicks and knacks that we had within the relationship, and we need to approach marriage as a full and whole individual. You know, so I very much agree with you, Professor, on that. And this is something that we need to be mature enough to take the time to stop and say, hey, I am not making that commitment without these situations being resolved. And it all speaks to our value of marriage. It all speaks to our consideration of this very serious covenant. And it all speaks to our level of maturity and readiness for marriage, when we can take the time to step back, fix the problems, and then walk into marriage together as a whole man, a whole woman, into a wholesome union.
Thank you. We only have 2 more minutes. I will allow Riquen to respond, but did I hear you say brass ring, George? Brass? You intend to give the lady a brass ring, George? We have to talk about that. You and I need to have a conversation. Yes, Riquen.
Right. So the assumption that marriage will fix things assumes or presumes that the problem is singleness. If marriage is going to fix it, then singleness is the problem. in reality, the problem is character. And if there are character issues before marriage, getting married is not going to fix those issues. Those issues need to be addressed at a personal and individual level. As a matter of fact, as George said, he used the word exacerbate. Things that are issues before marriage often become bigger problems in marriage. So marriage is by no means a tool to fix character flaws that individuals may have.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Riquen, Allen, and George Thomas. We run out of time. Thank you so much, Adesola. And folks, this has been Mentalk for today. We want to say thank you so much to our sponsor. That's Anaya Tony, the Feet Lady. And we will be back next Saturday, God's willing, at the same time, 8 o'clock, with another topic for you. If you feel there's something you want us to talk about, please feel free to send us. You can email me at mentalk@isaac981. Mentalk@gmail.com. Mentalk981@gmail.com. That's it. Or you can just call the studio and send the information. So thank you so much, every single one of you. Thank you for my two co-hosts. And as I said, this is the end of Mentalk for today. God bless you from Isaac 98.1 FM, FBN TV, and Isaac the Promise. My name is Noel Richards, aka the Professor. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Professor.
Hey, this is Noel Professor Richards, inviting you to join me every Saturday night at 8 p.m. for Mentalk. We will talk about how to live, how to love, and how to lead. It's 1.5 hours of men talking about all the things that men talk about. So don't miss it. It's Mentalk every Saturday at 8 p.m. on Isaac the Promise Facebook page, FBN TV, and Isaac 98.1 FM, The Promise.
Hello.
Hey Jack, you missed the meeting yesterday, boy. What happened?
Andrea was under some pressure, boy. Well, I know Uncle have diabetes, high blood pressure, and poor circulation. He couldn't even walk properly yesterday, so I took him to the feet lady, boy, Dr. Anaya Tony. And let me tell you something, when they're done with him, he feels so good. You know the man forget he walking stick by them. When I go back for the next session, we'll get back, man.
I must send her number to my cousin. She have a pinched nerve, lupus. And I think she uncle got a stroke. I had to see about my back pain too.
Well, Andrea, what are you waiting for? Take these numbers down one time. 360-5166 and 478-7416. Dr. Anaya Tony, boy, the feet lady from Anaya Health and Wellness Center.